So number 3, we have a standard form quadratic trinomial. What's your a value? -3, right? Your b value happens to be -6, and your c value happens to be 2. So on the front side of this worksheet, we have the steps on graphing parabolas. Step 1 is to find your vertex. And we also know that the vertex is a coordinate. It's simply a point. And it's the most important point of a parabola. It's either the highest point or the lowest point of a parabola. And right through that vertex point, that vertex coordinate, is the axis of symmetry, which allows you to reflect on both sides. So let's find this vertex. We're going to find this vertex by using the formula x equals -b/2a. So here's the formula. Now, whenever you use the formula, I would replace the letters with parentheses. And then after that, obviously, we're going to plug in the b value of -6 and the a value of -3. And from here, I'm actually going to zoom in to work out the math. Now, the x value, it is going to be +6 over -6. +6 over -6. And that means that the x value is -1. Once again, the x value is -1. Now you're thinking the x value, what does that mean? We're talking about the x value of the vertex. Remember, the coordinate is an xy value. The x value happens to be -1, the number we just found using the vertex formula. Okay? Now, if you have the x value and you want the y value, how do you do that on any equation? If you have an x value and you want the y value, how do you do that on any equation? You replace it. You plug it in. Plug it in for x. Technically, you're inputting the -1 for x, and you're going to get an output, and that'll be your y value of the parabola, of the vertex. I'm sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this thing down here, but instead of x's, I'm going to put parentheses. So there's my function, but instead of x's, I have parentheses. Now let me plug in my x value of -1 right in there. So in order to find the y, I plug it in and I work it out. Let me zoom in so we could actually work this out here. Let's start with exponents. -1 squared, what is that? That's +1. So you really have -3 times +1, that's going to be a -3, right? And then this -6 times this -1, what's that going to be? That's going to be +6, right? Let's bring down the +2 at the very end, which means that our final answer will be, anybody? 5. Thank you very much. Now that is the y value. After all, this original equation said y equals, and we found out what it equals. So what are we talking about, y equals 5? We're talking about the y value of the vertex is equal to 5. Okay, so we found the x using the formula. We got -1, and then anytime you have an x value and you want the y value, you plug it back into the original, and you do the math, and the answer you get is your y value. So that's your vertex. That is the most important point of the parabola. So let's go to the coordinate -1, +5. -1, +5 is way up here. Let's put a dot way up here. That's our vertex. And we also have mentioned the past day or two that through that vertex, through that most important point, there's the axis of symmetry. And usually on the videos I draw it with a green dotted line. Let me keep that going. There's my axis of symmetry that's going to provide a reflection on both sides of it. Technically, it helps me do the graph half or 2 times as fast. I could chop down the math a lot by recognizing that the axis of symmetry provides a reflection. So we definitely need more coordinates. How do we get more coordinates? How do we get more coordinates? Like, I don't know if it's going down really wide or really narrow. I need more points. How do I get more points on any function, guys? Make an XY table. Thank you. So what number is the easiest to plug in? 0 is the easiest, right? You know why? Whenever you plug in 0 for x, and you have a standard form quadratic trinomial equation, your c value is always going to be your answer. I mean, you can do the math if you want. Plug in 0 right there. 0 squared is 0. -3 times 0 is 0. 6 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. Of course, our c value is the answer. 0 plus 2 is 2. So anytime you plug in a 0 into a standard form quadratic trinomial, your answer is always C. So plugging in 0 is super easy. All you got to do is look at this last value, and that's your output. Anyways, this is a coordinate 0, 2. So let's graph it. 0 on the x, 2 on the y is right here. Let me put it. So that would be right here. 0, 2 is right there. Okay, and let's plug in one more just for kicks. What number could I plug in also? Another easy one. 1. Okay, so let's plug in a 1. So if you wanted to show your work, you could rewrite your original equation. I'm going to write it above, and I'm going to plug in 1. So there's my equation. Here's my input 1. If I work this out, 1 squared is 1. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. 6 times 1 is 6, but with the minus sign, it'll be a negative 6. Bring down the plus 2. Now when you say negative 3 minus 6, that's negative 9. Negative 9 plus 2, that is negative 7. So for the input of 1, we get an output of 7. Okay? So that's actually negative 7. That's off the graph already. So I'm not even, I mean, I guess I'll draw it just to show you. But if I go to the coordinate 1, negative 7, negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's going to be off the graph down here somewhere. Okay? And you could draw it if you want. You don't have to. Let's reflect all our coordinates to the other side of the axis of symmetry. So if this dot was 1 unit away, and you go 1 unit this way, you get to this dot. And if down here where you're off the graph, it's really 1, 2 units away, and if you go 2 units this way, you'll be at this dot right here off the graph. And now it's just a question of drawing your parabola, right? Drawing your parabola. So I'm not even going to bother to go all the way down to these points out here. I mean, I could if I wanted to. I'm just going to focus in on these 3. Put some arrows. I mean, if I wanted to, I could extend it all the way down here and all the way down here. It's up to you. Or you could just put some arrows and leave it at that, since these points are off the graph anyway. It's up to you. Okay? So that's how you graph. I hope this helps. What do you think?